The B.rad podcast is brought to you by Mofo, male optimization formula with organs to boost testosterone. B.rad's macadamia masterpiece, mind-blowing nut butter blend, now offered on Amazon. Chili Technology, temperature-controlled mattress systems for a good night's sleep. InsideTracker.com, offering blood, DNA, and fitness tracking data all in one place. And Organifi, whole food organic superfood supplements and drink blends. And please visit the shopping page at bradkearns.com for my personal selection of favorite products for health, fitness, and peak performance with great discounts for listeners. Here we go with the show.
That's what the sleep placebo effect is, that if you are told that whatever sleep you got last night happened to be high quality, you will actually perform better. Think about sleep debt, not about quality. Quality, there is no measure for sleep quality. Like, if you ask a sleep scientist what's sleep quality, they'll tell you, I have no idea. So let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to bed. You're just wide awake. If your mind's racing, jot that stuff down. If you're still there and you're like, I'm just awake, don't give yourself any hard time about it. Get out of bed, go do something else that you like to do. And then when you're ready to fall asleep and you're sleepy again, get back in bed. And if you can't, you don't fall asleep, literally do the same thing again.
Oh, I love the kind of breather shows that emanate from keeping the mic on after a formal interview show is over. And that is just what you're going to get with sleep expert Jeff Kahn. We had a wonderful show, so many amazing insights. It ended, or near the end, I asked my question about the Wimp Factor because I'm such a little wussy boy when I don't get my sleep and I feel so bad and I'm cranky about it the next day and I have to take a nap or even a second nap and everything's got to be perfect. And then meanwhile, Mia Moore, she's like a machine. She can go operate just fine on an extremely diminished night of sleep and then just sleep hard the next night. So we sort out some of these insights and notions that we harbor about sleep, again, with Jeff pointing to the science and really helping to cut through some of the misinformation or the misunderstandings that are out there. So in regard to the Wimp Factor that I asked him about, he actually mentioned two things. There is such a thing known as the sleep placebo effect. And maybe we can consider this and leverage it a little bit and change our attitude if we happen to have a night of imperfect sleep or a period of time of imperfect sleep. Maybe not worry about it, especially people that have minor insomnia. The actual instruction is to get up out of bed. The second thing he mentioned was that we indeed have individual differences and sensitivities to missing sleep and how we function the following day. So we have to definitely be vigilant about that, and kind of over time, especially as we're using his Rise app, we can track the level of sleep debt and what correlates to behavior changes during the day. So we know that we're getting in trouble if we're 2 or 3 or 4 hours of sleep debt accumulated from the previous week or 2 weeks. So you're going to get a lot of cool insights, and of course in a casual format, off the cuff conversation after that wonderful interview show, which I hope you'll listen to the whole thing in its entirety and then piggyback this little breather show. Jeff Kahn, here we go with more.
Sensitivity to sleep loss. So there's sort of, with sleep debt, what makes it even a bit more complex is that depending on the activity you're doing, different people have different sensitivities to sleep debt. So you and I both, Brad, might have 6 hours, but your athletic performance might be more affected than mine, for example. Even
what'd you call that second? There's the sleep placebo effect, and what's the second one?
So this one is just they call it like inter-individual differences with sleep debt. We might have different sensitivities to sleep debt. So we both might have 6 hours, but for me, I may my physiological performance may be much more impacted than yours is at 6 hours.
Oh, this is great.
Sense. So, we both might have 6 hours sleep debt, and my metabolism might only be down 18%, and yours is down, 38%. So right. It's significantly different.
The methylation of the chemicals, the hormones and neurotransmitters and all those things are, clearly off. And in my case, I can attest to it that I'm just not right. And then my partner, Mia Moore, she's like a robot. I know she's on the low end of that standard deviation because she wakes up and feels fantastic with, an abbreviated night of sleep and has really no ill effects. She can't see any decline.
Right. She's alert and she's awake. And she's
positive, happy, smiling, not anxious like the 50% of the people referenced in the other study. So,
so it's, this is, she's probably lower sleep need. And I wouldn't be surprised. It would be totally normal for you to need 9 hours every night.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be, if you said I need 9 hours every night, I'd be like, and there's some people that are 6'1". Like that's not abnormal.
6'9".
So, So the sleep placebo effect is the last one that I can share with you, which is
we're rolling, dude. This is a breather show right here. This is too good to.
Is this like a reprise or reprise, however you say that word?
Yeah, well, I have these breather shows that are, shorter and kind of follow-ups to the full-length interviews. So this is too precious to not record. So and listeners, you might have missed right before I hit record. I said, Jeff, I'm really concerned about this Wimp effect, and I always think about it like, do I just need to get out of bed and rally, or am I really one of these people that, the individual sensitivity you just explained? And then the placebo effect, I'm going to fasten my seatbelt here. I don't know if I want to hear the answer or not.
So this is a great one, but there was a study done and they had two groups of people. One of the groups, they said they had them get the same amount of sleep each night. I forget if it was 6 hours or 8 hours, but they basically said, regardless of the amount of sleep that they got, one group, they told them they got very high quality sleep and had more REM than usual.
Oh, the other group, told them in the morning?
Yeah, they told them right when they woke up. Hey, we measured your sleep.
Oh, that's so
You had way more
that's
quality
brutal.
sleep. Yeah, you had higher REM than usual. The other group, they told the opposite. And what did they find? So what they were measuring actually was that psychomotor vigilance task. Like it's this reaction time test that you can't learn. And it turns out the group that they told that had quote unquote better sleep quality ended up performing better, even though objectively there was no difference in the amount of sleep they had. And so that's what the sleep placebo effect is, that if you are told that whatever sleep you got last night happened to be high quality, you will actually perform better. So that's just kind of crazy that it does affect what you think happened. It certainly affects how you objectively perform. And it's worth considering when you wake up that, again, don't delay your judgment. Think about sleep debt, not about quality. Quality, there is no measure for sleep quality. Like if you ask a sleep scientist what's sleep quality, they'll tell you, I have no idea what sleep quality is.
Wow.
So Jamie Zeitzer was on a... I know, it's great.
You're trashing Jamie a lot Zeitzer, of expensive apps, man.
Yeah. Jamie Zeitzer, who's on the... He's one of the top circadian scientists, sleep scientists in the world. And just he's over at Stanford and one of the top scientists there. He was on a podcast recently and he's helped on a bunch of stuff that we've done. And I love this line. The host asked him about sleep quality. He said, I have no idea what sleep quality is. And this is like one of the top people in the field.
Well, that's a problem. That's a problem,
right.
Sir.
So and the sort of more nuanced answer is sleep science does have a thing called sleep quality. It's a high level construct. And there are, about 8 different measures of sleep quality. So one measure is when someone wakes up, you ask them, how do you feel 1 to 5? Another measure is something called sleep efficiency, where you measure of the time someone was in bed, what % of the time were they sleeping? That's another measure. But, there's so many of these different measures where it's like, it's not like there is a thing called sleep quality that is objective in any way. And so don't worry about that. If you're really restless, and let's say you're up in the middle of the night, the reason you feel bad the next day isn't because your sleep quality was bad. It's because you had high sleep debt because you didn't get as much actual physiological sleep. So as long as you are asleep, you're doing what you need to be doing. So long as you're not under the influence of, external substances or, you have a sleep disorder or, anything kind of long tail like that. So.
And I guess a fitful night of sleep is going to be driven by emotional disturbances. Otherwise, when we go to bed, we're going to sleep unless we get in our own way, I suppose.
Yeah, in some ways. And I'm happy to drop a couple things that work really well for that. I mean, it's super common, first of all, to have, disturbed sleep, to not be able to fall asleep easily at night. And it's nothing to worry about. First of all, it's actually normal to have, these sort of intermittent issues. If it's happening very regularly, like it's 3 times a week, every week, every month, that's something you should bring up with your physician and see if you can spend some time with a behavioral sleep medicine specialist. That's what is known as insomnia, which is, again, just sort of this general categorization of I have difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. So there are some really great ways to reverse that, which we won't talk about now. But if you are having just sort of like, oh, my mind's racing, or, oh, I woke up in the middle of the night, like just some, I'd say 2 very kind of research-backed approaches to that. One is, can you, if your mind is sort of active, just literally detailing or journaling the things that are in your brain, just putting them down. Like I'll take out my phone. I have it on night mode. I have my orange glasses on. By the way, orange glasses, tons of great science behind them. I've worn them every night for the last, 6 years of my life. So orange glasses are great. We can talk about that later too, but literally I'll just jot down the things in my brain, and then I'll go back to bed. And if I'm still, I'm awake and it's when I'm normally supposed to be sleeping, I'll actually get out of bed and go do something else. Go watch TV, go listen to a podcast, go hang out, go read. When I'm sleepy, I get back in bed. And that you want to just rinse and repeat that formula. So let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to bed. You're just wide awake. If your mind's racing, jot that stuff down. If you're still there and you're like, I'm just awake, don't give yourself any hard time about it. Get out of bed, go do something else that you like to do. And then when you're ready to fall asleep and you're sleepy again, get back in bed. And if you can't, you don't fall asleep, literally do the same thing again. And that's called stimulus control. And that is actually the way to reverse insomnia. It's the best way to do it. But it's, anyway, if you have insomnia, you should do it with a behavioral sleep medicine specialist. But if you don't, and it's just sort of, you're looking for what to do, that is the sort of best research-backed way to, make sure that you're falling asleep, staying asleep. And again, with sleep debt, one night of getting 4 hours sleep, okay, that's fine. You'll be fine. You don't need to worry about it. It actually happened to me yesterday. I had 2 hours of sleep debt, and then I had just like a super fitful night. I was just up. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I was just wide awake. So I got out of bed. I watched Peaky Blinders. I wasn't tired. And I think I went back to bed at like 6 a.m. and I got maybe another hour and a half of sleep or 2 hours of sleep. I think I got maybe 5 hours total. And so I ended up building up about 3 hours of sleep debt. But on top of my 2, I only had 5. So I still felt great that day. I felt really weird the first 90 minutes, but I went out, I did my run, I had my coffee, started working, and I felt, all things equal, I felt really good. And then that night I was able to go back to sleep and I paid it down. And so anyway, it's nothing to freak out about. Even people that have been studying this for years and years and years, it's not about perfection. This stuff is a lifelong practice.
What about this concept that if we are in debt and really needing sleep, are we going to get a deeper, more efficient sleep? And so it counts for more, even though it was still only 8 hours, than a slightly, maybe you had a couple disturbances, you went up to pee a couple times and recall being restless for a little bit versus just being out like a rock because you were so deprived?
Yeah. So your brain will self-optimize that. And so you'll actually get a higher percentage of REM earlier in the night if you're very sleep deprived, and your REM latency will decrease. So the amount of time it takes your brain to get into REM, usually it takes a while because you're doing more deep sleep. But if you're very deprived, you'll see a higher percentage of REM sleep earlier in the night. And again, what we don't really know, what we know is this is happening. What we don't really know is what it all means exactly. And the sleep staging stuff, again, your brain is really self-optimizing that for you. And if you're not getting to the deep sleep, the benefit is your brain is doing things like encoding memory and emotion and getting you ready to be able to have empathy the next day. Like all of these other things that are just fundamental to existing. So it's sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in the lighter sleep, wonderful things are happening. So it's not like, I don't want light sleep or it's inefficient sleep. That's not the case. It's just that it's sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that if you cut your sleep really short, your brain's going to go to the things that you absolutely need to stay alive. And so in that case, arguably, I guess it's more efficient. But as you get more and more sleep, as you pay back more and more debt, your brain will spend more time in things that are sort of actually very important for today's modern living that, maybe weren't as important when we were sort of hunting and gathering.
Right. This reminds me of Dr. Sarah Mednick's book, Take a Nap, Change Your Life. And she said that the nature of your nap is going to be what you're deficient on. And so you might have a REM nap where you're dreaming a lot, or you might have a rock solid deep sleep nap where you wake up and feel groggy. And people always report, sometimes I take a nap and I wake up and feel super groggy. And other times I wake up and feel refreshed and alert and all that. And so that's pretty interesting how that self-optimization occurs.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's just something to be aware of and not trying to force it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's just not a thing to focus on.
And it's probably what some of those apps are doing is trying to wait, that more deep sleep means more efficient rather than fitful where you're waking up from dreams where it's completely off base from your true needs.
And it's one of the areas where I think Matt Walker, in my opinion, because of his expertise in sleep and memory, I mean, literally what the guy studies is, hey, we're going to selectively deprive people of different stages. And we're looking at mechanistically how memory gets encoded based on your sleep. And if we don't get REM, does this type of memory get encoded or not? So, I mean, he's super deep on that mechanism, but I think he's getting lost in the details. And the forest is that your brain's self-optimizing. So, it's not the fact that you're not getting deep means that you're getting more of another stage. You're getting more stage 2. And obviously if you have a sleep disorder, or you have, a suboptimal sleep environment where, you're getting woken up unnecessarily, then yes, there's things we should do, but it's not inherently an area, in my opinion, that as lay people, we should be focused on trying to do anything about. So, actually really great example of a company, I think, doing something great in the space is Apple. Apple Watch is the most popular wearable device. It has some of the most advanced sensors. They have some of the best technologists, some of the best R&D engineers. And if you look at their sleep tracking that they launched with watchOS 7, you'll see that all they have is the amount of time you were sleeping. That's all they report.
And how are they tracking that? Is it advanced, or is it just that the watch was still not moving? Or something?
They're using motion, which is a technique called actigraphy, and then they use heart rate. And I don't know if they use any other data on that, but it's sensor fusion stuff. But what they're telling you is, were you awake or were you asleep? And they're not telling you REM and sleep quality and deep sleep and how long it took you to fall asleep. And so the question is wait, was as they didn't do it? Look at all these other apps, Fitbit's doing it, and, Sleep Cycle's telling you how light or deep your sleep was, and, whatever. I love both of those brands, but what ends up happening is it's gotten in the way of, it's confusing consumers. It's ultimately not useful information. And so anyway, I applaud Apple for the deep scientific research they did and sticking to their guns from a product standpoint to say, we're not going to include junk in our experience just because it's going to, get people to look at it more often. That's not their business model.
They did deep research to do a shallow reporting of data. Love it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this placebo, I'm wondering how to best leverage that. One of the things you said that's really helpful is don't stress about your imperfect night of sleep. In fact, get up and putz around. And so if you have less anxiety over your sleep perfection, that's one. And I suppose if you just keep this calculation working, your sleep debt, which you reported, obviously you're, I guess, looking at the app and you always have a number in mind there. Hopefully it's 0. We know we can't get into the plus column. You can't oversleep, which is a really cool insight. But if you're working on -2 or -5 or whatever, you just kind of have this idea in your mind that you're going to grab that at some point, and it's not huge trouble that you're -5.
Yeah. And you'll feel, I think what's exciting is once you start measuring it in your own life, you'll be like, oh, okay, here's how I feel at 5. And then you'll get up to 10 some days and be like, oh, wow, this is what I feel like when I'm at 10. Yeah, that's why I'm more anxious than usual. And I'm a little more depressed, and I'm not as optimistic as I used to be. And my confidence isn't where it used to be. And I'm not performing as well, athletic. You'll feel what it's like at 10, 15, and 5, and 3, and 2. And so you'll start to be like, oh, I'm at 5 tomorrow. fine. Like I haven't my day tomorrow isn't super challenging. I still feel good at 5. So, for me at 5, I can't even, the early afternoon dip when you might feel like, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you might feel a little bit sleepy. So at 5, I don't even feel that if I'm at 5 hours of sleep debt. And when I'm at 6 or 7, I really feel it. And if I'm at 8, 9, 10, I'm like struggling to stay awake. I can't focus. I mean, it's like that whole chunk of my day is kind of gone.
Right. And
whereas
due
at
to
5,
the,
I actually don't feel it as much.
Due to the individual differences, I might be the person that says, hey, at 2, I feel terrible and I need a nap or I can't function, which is just something to recognize and kind of relate to those numbers. Oh, I'm all over the Rise app, man. This is great. Thanks for sticking around for a breather show. We have another rap, Jeff Kahn. Great stuff, man. All right.
Appreciate it.